Welcome to the February meeting of the Town of Newbury Human Resources Board. It is 4:02 and present are
Diane Doyle.
Mark Kleckman.
John Ferrara.
Anthony Antico.
Lynn Peabody.
Patty Fisher.
Thank you all. Nice to see everybody. As always, first order of business is to approve the minutes of the prior meeting. In this case, it's the meeting of January 22nd, 2024. Diane, as always, thank you in advance for getting this to the board. Has everyone had an opportunity to read through it?
Yes.
Seeing that, is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Motion.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion as written, excuse me, of the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Hi there.
Well,
Joining us is John Temple, our IT director.
Oh, hey, John. Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Further down on the agenda.
Thank you for joining us. We'll move right along and get to you in a couple minutes.
No problem.
Thank you. Employee issues, let me turn to Patty and/or Diane. Anything that we should be aware of?
I got nothing on my end. Nothing.
No, great. Personnel actions and job vacancies. I know, when I understand the town has been successful in bringing a number of new people on board, or at least getting a number of people, positions filled.
Yep.
Diane, you want to share what's happening there?
Yes, so we have hired a new conservation agent. He started last week, Sean Young. Jumping right in. He comes with, I'm not exactly sure of his background, but has experience with marine fisheries and some of the other aspects of conservation. Seems great, he's jumping right in. He started last Tuesday.
Great.
And he did come back for week 2, so that's a plus.
I met him this morning, very pleasant.
Yes, I think he's gonna be a great addition. We have hired, the assistant town administrator has been hired. His name is David Fields. He'll be joining us on March 20th. He comes from the city of Gloucester, so we're excited about that.
Great.
We've hired a new library director. They've selected a candidate. She will be starting, her name is Haley Hart. She comes as the assistant library director in Ipswich and will be starting next Monday.
Great.
good deal.
We had a,
That's a lot.
Yeah, those are good positions to fill.
yes.
That's great.
So especially given the fact that a month ago,
Yes, how
the
quickly.
cupboard was fairly empty. So
Yes,
that's great.
absolutely.
That was quite a marathon, that's
Yeah.
well done.
We had a retirement in the DPW. We had Darren Sanborn of our DPW, had been with us for 30+ years. He retired the first part of February. And luckily enough, we hired someone to come into the DPW. I don't know exactly, I think there'll be some shifts of people that were there into he was the working foreman.
Mhm.
So we've hired Justin Crosby, who comes to us from the Newburyport DPW, to fill a vacant position. There's some reshuffling
Okay.
going on.
Great.
And then the last personnel job vacancies would be the resignation of the assistant town, the treasurer collector. She will be leaving us this Thursday, the 9th, to move on to other opportunities.
I can't remember if we went through my 2 vacancies last month or not.
So that's what I have, I know, usually.
Yeah, so we have one of our full-time dispatchers is bumping down to part-time. He is gonna go back to school. And then one of our full-time officers is leaving us for a larger department. So we have those 2 postings in addition to the part-time dispatcher and part-time officer positions that are constantly posted.
Great. Any kind of a pipeline for that permanent position, or?
We're doing backgrounds for both positions right now on candidates, so.
Great. Good luck with that.
Hopefully, thank you very much. Yeah.
All set, Patty? All set?
Yeah, all set, yeah, they're both of their last days, sorry, is March 2nd. Both of them are,
March 2nd. Okay,
March
so
2nd.
just, can you make sure that Caitlin comes to see me at some point?
I can.
Or the officer that's leaving?
Yep, can do.
So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other discussion on open positions or personnel matters? I'm not aware of anything related to workplace ethics, discrimination issues. Nothing's been brought to my attention. Chief, anything on your end there?
Nothing on my end.
Nope.
That's a good thing.
I'll
Thank
second.
you.
Yes.
Safety issues?
Yep, no safety issues, no.
Everything remains the same. Protocol has been in place for a number of months now, really, right? No changes?
For a while now, no changes, yep.
Okay.
Just following the CDC guidelines with everything COVID related, and that's it.
I know that we do have a pretty healthy supply of tests at the Board of Health, so if anyone needs tests or wants tests,
Okay, great.
we just got a big shipment.
Thank you. Safety issues, nothing there.
Yep.
Okay. Other business, multi-factor authentication policy. Diane, if you just want to sort of introduce this, and then we'll ask John to join the conversation.
So yeah, John brought this to my attention, I don't know, about a week and a half ago. We wanted to add it to the agenda for discussion on policy. I mean, I probably should let John speak to the technical aspect of what it is. I understand what it is, but if you want to just give us kind of a summary
Sure.
and why you feel it's important to add to the policy.
Say,
So
John.
multi-factor authentication, which is also called two-factor authentication in some places, or in its original form, is now really common mostly in the professional industry. Most people encounter it when using a banking app on their phone or a website login, where in practice a user will attempt to log into a service. After entering their password, they'll be given an additional challenge in the form of the second factor. This usually takes the form of a text message with a PIN number. It can also come in via email. In the newest implementation, there are apps created specifically for it by companies. Google has one, Microsoft now has one, several others are creating their own security chain where they produce the app, they validate the security, and they say, okay, use ours, it's the most secure version. In practical application for cybersecurity, its role is to increase the challenge that a hostile party would have in breaching an email or other system protected by multi-factor, wherein a person who may manage to steal the password or guess the password of a person would also need a way to verify the second factor. In practice, they would need to steal your cell phone, which is a little more noticeable than simply breaching a password. It can also be used as an indicator where someone tries to log in, and then the actual owner of the account receives that attempt, the request for second authentication, and then knows, oh, my account has been partly breached, I can now act to resecure it. Those are the functional details of the service. We would like to adopt it for the email system at the recommendation of the Department of Homeland Security and the NSA, among many cybersecurity specialists as well. It's become standard practice for sensitive systems or systems, that can be used to create fraud or vulnerability or otherwise steal from people.
Is this becoming commonplace in the municipal world?
Yes, right, actually, this past month, I believe, about 2 weeks ago, we received a wide ranging email from the state of Massachusetts through the EOTSS and other agencies that a Department of Homeland Security grant has become available for assisting funding in municipalities specifically for the purpose of implementing MFA, multi-factor authentication, among other specific cybersecurity improvements.
Right. And how do you, so what's the functionality for it in the town of Newbury? What will it be used for?
In the town of Newbury, we'll be implementing it. In this opportunity, there are many ways to implement for our email system specifically. So when an end user, myself would be a good example, I've already set it up on my account, logs in the morning or logs in via the mobile email I keep on my town phone, I'm further requested or receive that challenge. So I enter my password, I receive the prompt for the PIN number for the authenticator, and then I use the authenticator to enter it. We'd like to apply it to all town email accounts, so any email account with townofnewbury.org, which would include all town hall employees as well as the fire department employees.
Great, thank you.
I would, go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
I would suspect that if you're also part of this policy, as I think, I understand, it's also for if you are logging into, say, like in my role, I'm logging into banks, or I'm logging into systems, or that part of this policy states that I, as a town employee, will agree to use my cell phone for the purpose of authentication. Is that also part of this, that we're, as an employee, this policy is also that employees are agreeing to use a personal device to acknowledge that PIN? Is that part of this too?
Yes, I would consider that to be the case.
Okay,
There are many ways to set that service up for mobile devices, so we're no longer limited to saying you agree to accept any charges for the original implementation, which relied on text messages. Not all vendors at the time allowed free text messaging, so there could have been a charge. With the advent of the unlimited data plans that are now extremely common, and our preference being the use of the authenticator apps, which are more secure than a text message, we believe that it will be most effective to rely on the authenticator services to prevent any financial impact on an end user. We want the security service, but we also don't want to say to our employees, oh yeah, you're gonna have to spend some money on
Right.
behalf of the town.
Right, thank you.
okay.
Is it just when you log in the morning, you know, for example, or from a new device, or is it with every email that's exchanged?
It would be with each opening of the email service. So if you're at a desktop computer and you log out for the day, closing your Outlook, when you open Outlook again, in this example, it would prompt again.
Perfect.
Mobile devices, I will say, work a little differently. They have a time period for which the token is valid. The token being that second factor, you enter it, and then usually it's about a week that you'll be prompted, hey, check in again.
Perfect.
Do we use VPN for offsite?
Yes, we currently use VPN for any offsite employee connecting to the network.
Okay, so that would be two-step multi-factor authentication, correct? Like even without this policy in place? So say for instance Diane is working remotely today and she logs in through VPN. So she would be prompted to do a multi-factor authentication, wouldn't she?
So in this case, it's actually a little bit hazier now. In cybersecurity industry terms, you could consider the two-step process of logging in, as we have VPN to, say, a target remote desktop, to be two-factor. It would be considered probably one of the weaker forms. Two-factor authentication in its newest forms, multi-factor authentication, is something we can extend to the VPN, which is actually on my security roadmap for once we have the exchange, the email servers secured, then we can explore how to technologically implement it for VPN services.
Okay, sorry, do you?
So when I would log into VPN, you log in, but then there's a second step to it.
Okay,
But the VPN in and of itself, isn't that a private, that's considered private?
Yes. So the
virtual private
VPN
network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm an employee and I come in and I open my laptop, my desktop, whatever, so when I open my emails, this two-step is going to be prompting me at that point?
For opening your emails, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do we have, well, we do, I think, have just a portal, you know, to get into the town of Newbury as an employee to do work, or no? So do you just work off of emails? I mean, how do you start your day?
I just have my computer in I don't work from home, I don't
Yep.
VPN in. The only time I did it was the brief period that I was forced to do it during COVID.
Uh-huh.
But no, we're on our desktop. There are some people who have laptops because they're out in the field, whether it's, I don't know, building inspector or, our inspectors, our inspectors in the building office, but I just log into my computer as me, but then this would be further for the email service.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think it's good. I work for an organization that recently had a cyber attack, and it was devastating for the organization. So it took, a good month and a half to even recover from that. So any kind of security enhancement, I'm in support of.
So I have a question about, so would this be something that we would put into our personnel policy document that we just amended, or is this just a practice? Like, does the board feel, how does this fit within, are we looking to add this to our personnel policy, or is this just a policy that we're adopting for the requirement to do this?
Question, do we have policies and procedures for each department that are separate than the personnel policies about employment and hiring and things like that?
I mean, I can't speak to other departments. I would think that the police department or the fire department has other policies and procedures that they must follow other than what's detailed specific to the nature of the work that you do in your department.
Yeah, I didn't know if that applied to all the
I'm
departments,
just
because
wondering
I
if-
think this would be more like a policy and procedure, but if they don't have that, then I think it would go into the personnel policy.
Yeah.
What's
what I
the
meant.
practice been? Have you seen this in a personnel policy? I'm trying to think of the policies that I've had. And I don't know that a two-step authentication.
No, this is
No.
just a practice.
Yeah, typically it's in kind of the IT policy, you know, about safe use or something like that. I think once you put this into a policy, that's going to tie your hands, you know, going forward. Like, what if next year we have a different way for security enhancement? So I don't think that I've seen it. Have you seen it?
So I have actually, professionally in the enterprise world and also with small business environments that choose to implement more advanced multi-factor authentication technologies. They do exist for securing down to desktop and laptop level, such that when you log in on a specific device, even to mobile level, which gets complex, that you might log in for the day, not even to email, but simply your login screen. You then receive that prompt. That's a more in-depth version. Usually those environments will have it. I also have seen it in the enterprise world where they use a more comprehensive service. There are several out there that create a one singular password for all services by linking them together, and then they protect that top level service with multi-factor authentication. Usually, especially in the case of the latter, I should say, there is focus on clarifying that an employee will use the software, that there will be no other form of access. Oftentimes, because employees will ultimately request an exception, and by defining that there's no exception in the employee handbook at onboarding, they avoid creating a conflict with their IT first level help desk teams and top level policies.
And that's my thought, is if we're asking people who are not issued work cell phones to agree to use their personal cell phones for this two-factor for them to agree to use this, I think that's the reason that it needs to be in the personnel policy.
He's checking to see what it says, but I think to Lynn's point, if we keep layering in all these different procedures into that personnel policy, it's gonna, it becomes voluminous to the point that you can't speak to every, that's why I asked the question, is this a policy or is this a procedure? Or if we, so John's, it might just say,
It says that to engage in conduct which prohibits conducting town equipment will be considered violating of the policy, meaning employees who use personal electronics, including not limited to cell phones, pagers, camera phones, and computers on town property or at town work sites. To engage in such is a violation of
but
policy.
that's different.
That's
That's different than what we're saying.
Okay, then this is the only thing we mentioned under communications.
Okay. Can I recommend a couple things here?
Yeah.
Why don't we first, once we get through this conversation, vote as a board as to whether we are in favor of adopting this practice? I assume that's why you brought it in front of us, John, okay. And then perhaps we can review the personnel policy in a little bit more depth, see where it might fit, if at all. Might also want to check with town council to see if they have any opinion on the matter, whether they feel it should be included in the personnel policy, and maybe use some guidance there. That make sense?
Well, it speaks to the policy may be updated from time to time. So I mean, obviously this is an update from time to time.
Okay.
It may well belong in the personnel policy as opposed to a separate practice, but I don't think we need to decide that today.
No,
We just need to decide if we're in agreement with the concept, I guess.
Okay.
because I think we had something earlier even today that came up that would also speak to another similar arrangement, the use of any outside Dropbox or any outside, equipment that's not supported through the, so that would also be something that would fall, I think, under the same category of, this is sound business practice, we're going to adopt this practice. But is it a policy? Is it a, and how does it fit?
That is one item I had considered in regards to this, where at the time, before this morning, as far as IT was aware, all data sharing tools were part of the management environment of IT. We had a discovery this morning that that was not the case. An employee, in good faith, had set up a third-party cloud service and was keeping town documents on that service in a measure to communicate with members of, I believe, a committee. The trouble with that in terms of IT is both partly for cybersecurity, because it's a unmonitored cloud environment that I cannot audit and otherwise pull records from, nor can I manage up-to-date employee access controls, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also that they don't have any controls over what exactly documents they are. They may be sensitive, they may not be sensitive, they vary. It also runs into retention rules issues. I have no idea what the retention needs to be applied there. With cloud document services, frequently it's there until someone hits delete and then it's gone with truly no recoverability at all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that is an element that I'm now considering down the road to state there will be no unmanaged third-party products used for document management that IT is not aware of, pre-approved of, involved in the management, control, and audit of, for all of these reasons and more.
Yeah, but my point is exactly that we keep uncovering, if we keep adding certain things, we're gonna be coming before the select board every month with, oh, here's another policy, here's another, So I don't know if there's something that we can do, but we can have the discussion, but I just brought that up just because we're seeing that, these things are coming more, frequently.
Yes.
So,
John, do you anticipate as part of this process that employees would be required to sign some sort of an authorization or acknowledgement of the fact that they are participating in this multi-factor authentication policy, just as they do with, confirming that every year or every other year they've read the nepotism policy and conflict of interest policy? Is this something you see as a requirement?
I would recommend it in practice.
So being
so we could do
employee's
that.
file.
It could be a separate computer use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a confidentiality or code of conduct that all new employees or all employees sign? Would it,
They sign that.
yeah.
So
Would that be,
we could have something more extensive for computer use. We could write something more of a comprehensive computer
Okay, we can work
use.
through that.
for
usage.
another policy for them to sign off on
They
when they
could,
start? Or like all employees?
So that could be an option,
Okay.
because they
Tony?
can
I'm sorry.
continue to grow, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
No, my comment was going to be, if you have, in the world of cybersecurity, if you are enlarging this area with all kinds of little tidbits of stuff, that can be dangerous in itself. It's almost like a military, military kind of a thing. A lot of it you don't want out there, all right? But the users have to know enough about that.
Yeah.
So perhaps some, as you were talking about, just general levels of guidance in the personal policy manual.
Right.
But too much is no good,
Right.
You're hamstrung everywhere you turn. Yeah.
Right. And then somebody reads it and he says, oh, I can do that.
Yeah. But
Oh,
certainly
you
you
don't
don't
want
want
it.
I know how to hack the blah 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 system
Yeah.
that the town
Or
uses.
so-and-so is
Yeah,
must be
sure.
using multi-factor authentication. I'll find when, so I understand what you're saying, some liability,
Yeah, that's a
but,
good point of
I'm
view.
gonna tell you, every time I need to log into Fidelity or Schwab, and I get one, I'm on multi-factor for both of them, I breathe a sigh of relief. I mean, every time, within 10 seconds, it pops up. VeriSign, I think, is the technology I think is it very clear?
Yes, I believe so,
Your
or,
health chart, you do the
Yes.
same thing. You
Yes.
can't stay. logged
VIP
into
access,
your health
sorry,
chart.
VIP access. It's great technology.
Yeah.
So, okay, so,
John, thank you so much.
Great job.
help.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice, nice.
All right.
appreciate your time, John, nice to meet you. Okay, is there any further discussion on it before we vote on whether the board is prepared to adopt the practice? We've got some things to work through, but
So just to clarify what the proposed would be, that we will adopt this at this point and look for further guidance on, what should our policy be, if there are any enhancements, things like that?
yeah.
Or where this sits within the personnel policy, or is it a separate one-off in terms of an additional
Agreement.
Right.
agreement with
Yeah.
employees, existing employees and future employees?
Right. Right now, I think we're just gonna vote on, conceptually, do we think that it would be wise for the town of Newbury to adopt this policy of multi-factor authentication for purposes of protecting data, protecting confidential information wherever it may lie within the municipality?
Is this going into place at this time? Is it already in place? And we're
Well, I
just
think it-
talking about the policy?
I think it depends, no, well,
It's not in place
it's
yet.
not in place
Okay.
yet.
Yeah, this
All
is
right.
just, this would be step one in
Okay.
our deciding as an HR board. We don't have the power we're only making a recommendation to the select board, to the town administrator, and then perhaps to town council as well,
I
right?
think we just need to figure out, we're gonna vote on whether we think this is feasible for the town, and then it's gonna be what vehicle is
Right.
this going to take? Is it going to go
Right.
into the policy? Is there gonna be a broader adjustment in there that would reference a computer / something else policy? I think that's what we're,
Right. Right now, we're just voting on whether we believe that this is a good addition to the town's safekeeping, if you will, to ensure that we're protecting classified information.
It's just a,
Is that everyone's understanding?
I think it just requires a paragraph on page 40 to enhance it, to
okay.
let them know it's coming. It seems simple and useful.
So do you need the motion
Is there
first?
a motion?
So-
Yeah.
Motion?
Just a moment.
Okay,
This is it's entitled multi-factor authentication policy. That's saying it's a policy, and it's really not, just basically how it works. And is it possible that this can be part of the manual?
that's what we're saying.
Verbatim, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's what
Yeah.
we just wanna make sure that whether it goes in there or if it's done as a separate policy.
Right.
So the policy part is pending, but the actual logistic part is pending also, based on the policy part, our process
Yeah,
part?
whether it needs to be a standalone,
No,
or whether we incorporate it into the broader personnel
I think to
policy.
answer your question, I think we're going to agree that this should go into place.
Yes,
It's just how we document employees, acknowledgement and understanding of this, whether it's a exact verbatim in the policy, or if there's something in there that would reference a much larger computer authentication, storage document, separate agreement, if you will. That's my understanding.
so the logistics are pending.
Is that how you understand it?
I see it as the first motion is, do we agree that the town of Newbury should adopt a multi-factor authentication policy
Correct.
for all town employees? So I think that's the first motion.
Period.
Okay, so Patty made the motion.
Period.
Second?
Want to say that again, Patty?
So, I make a motion to recommend that the town of Newbury adopt a multi-factor authentication policy for all email servers. So
Thank you.
we're doing yes or no vote on that.
Is there a second?
John.
Second.
Yep.
Before we vote, any further discussion?
No, you limited that to emails.
Yeah,
Oh.
I would take emails
Oh,
out of
all
it.
right,
Yeah,
so,
I wouldn't suggest
Any
it.
applicable
IT.
use of
Yeah,
IT.
exactly.
yep, so the town of Newbury to adopt the multi-factor authentication policy to apply through the IT department.
Okay.
They list, inside of page 40, they list telephones, facsimile, computers, printers, radios, pagers, et al. I mean, they list them all.
So,
Okay, so further discussion. So that applies to a policy. What if we determine that policy is not appropriate and that it would fit in as a practice or a procedure under existing policy? So your motion is to adopt a policy.
I don't think we need to get hung up on the word
Yeah.
policy
Well,
right now, because again, we are not the final arbiter of this. As an example, if the determination is, perhaps we're talking to town administrator, perhaps we're talking to town council, if especially with town council, if they believe it should be adopted as part of the personnel policy, then once it passes our jurisdiction, then it's got to go to the select board again, and they're the ones that make the final decision whether they want it included as part of the personnel policy. If it's separate and apart from the personnel policy, then I think it's a town administrative decision. I don't think it requires going to the select board. You know, either way, we're making a recommendation, and then I think if it's part of the personnel policy by bylaw, it needs to go to the select board. If it sits outside of the personnel policy and it's just a new practice, as a layperson, I believe that the town administrator can implement it.
So we can, for the sake of the motion, we can say policy or practice.
I think that's broad enough.
Yeah.
I think that broadens it.
Yeah, it gives us the option to go right or left at the intersection,
Okay.
so.
Okay. So we have a
I've got the,
motion and a second.
yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the multi-factor authentication policy / practice, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous?
Okay.
Thank you all, good discussion. Okay, before we close our regular scheduled meeting and go to the subcommittee meeting, let's just review the calendar. Next meeting would be tentatively scheduled for Monday, March 25th. If everyone can take a peek at their calendar and let me know if that is a good date.
Works for me.
Yes.
Looks good.
Okay, let's plug that in, please. March 25th at 4 p.m. Done. Any other issues to discuss?
None.
Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second?
No discussion? We are adjourned.
Okay.
And we'll immediately open up for our subcommittee classification meeting. And thank you all, Vince, for willing us to stick around a little bit here today to get through this new classification. Let's open the subcommittee meeting. It is 4:35.
Diane, did you do any additional copies?
I do. Yep, does anybody else need one?
No, I'm all set.
Do you have an additional copy of the,
I have the rating thing.
no, the job description, also the,
Factors.
Oh, the factors?
I have some rating right here. if
I
you want.
need to.
The factors or the sheet to keep
The
track?
sheet?
Oh, you got it.
I don't have a copy of the sheet.
Is that an
I
extra,
usually-
can I write on
You can
it?
write
No,
it
you
down, yep,
keep-
I just,
okay.
I have
I
a
need
sheet.
to, I need to make copies of this.
Didn't
You
I
want me to
give
give you
you
two?
copies of?
This is it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, this one is
The original,
the original.
the master.
Yeah, I have a copy right here in the file.
Lynn, you have the factors, right?
I do. The one that I have is filled out from the last time, so I didn't
Oh.
have a blank, so now I have a blank
Oh.
from Patty. So I will make copies and put them in.
Okay.
Okay, we're all set to go?
All set.
All right, introducing the topic of our subcommittee meeting, we are here to discuss a position,
Yes, I do.
Assistant Treasurer Collector, an existing position which is being reclassified as a result of some changes to the role and responsibility. I'm going to turn the floor over to Diane in a second as the hiring manager to discuss that. But before I do, I just want to remind folks what our precedent here is in the HR board, and that is for the purposes of this subcommittee meeting, while Diane is sitting with us at the table, she will not be voting on the classification of this position. We have a precedent for this. When Chief Fisher sat with us shortly after joining our board about 18 months or so ago, I think it was in the fall of '22, we were in a similar position where a role was being either, I'm not sure if it was created or being rejigged, but it was a position that fell under the leadership of the PD. And even though Chief was a member of the HR board at that point, we made the determination that in order to avoid any perception of a conflict of interest or anything along those lines, it would be best if she not be a part of the voting group as a subcommittee member. And we're going to follow that precedent again today, and I think it's a good one. I think it keeps us above the political fray, if you will. No one certainly is going to accuse us of allowing a hiring manager to influence the decision-making process here. So with that in mind, let me turn it over to Diane, who can tell us a little bit about the evolution of this position.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and thank you everyone for doing this relatively quickly. I appreciate that. We are looking to get this posted, hopefully end of day today or tomorrow. The position is being vacated on Thursday, so it was important for me to take a look at the job description quickly to get the posting done so that we can get someone in there. So again, thank you for making the time. Little bit of a history on this role. Obviously, I've been a part of a two-person department, treasurer collector, assistant treasurer collector. The last time this job was actually looked at was in December of 2012. So it's going on 13 plus years. And so I felt that with the position being open and really trying to look for a qualified candidate, I wanted to take a look at the job description and have it reevaluated. I think over the years, some of the ways that we've looked at some of the factors and so forth, I think it's shifted because we've had such a different, I think there's been an evolution of the jobs here in town. So it's been 13 plus years, so I felt like it was warranted that we take a look at it. The other reason is over the last 13 years, this job's evolved. We've taken on a lot more responsibility, a lot more issues and things that we do within the treasurer's function. Benefit administration, payroll, it's just, the position has just really evolved. So the other thing that used to happen is we had, this role also sort of partially supported our accounting function, because that department really had like 1.5 to 2 people. And so there were things that the assistant treasurer collector did to support the accounting function that no longer we do, because now they're fully staffed and they have sufficient staff to handle what they need to do. So that's sort of the evolution of this. I felt like it really just needed to be looked at. Looking to really get a good, solid, qualified candidate to partner with me over the next few years. So I think with that said, that's been sort of the history. It's been a while.
Let me open it up to any introductory questions?
Nope.
Comments? The only thing I noticed, and I'm curious about this, Diane, is, and you mentioned a couple of them just now, is it reasonable to assume that areas like benefits administration, payroll, you talk about Maya wellness liaison, those, again, as a layperson, I ask, those aren't necessarily things that you would typically find under the jurisdiction of treasurer collector, is that
Yes,
fair?
and I think that's come up before when we've talked about salary analysis. In a very small community like Newbury, we handle the tax collection process, we issue the bills, we handle all of the deposits, we handle benefits administration, payroll. In a much bigger city, you would have a payroll function or an HR function that would handle all of that.
Right.
So in terms of Maya Wellness, we get our insurance, we have our insurance through the Massachusetts Insurance Association, and so they've developed a wellness program, and there's a lot of programs within that we push out to our employees. Fitness, we have wellness programs, we have grants that are available. So for example, the assistant treasurer collector helped file for a grant last year to have people's workstations evaluated with equipment being purchased at the expense of our insurance provider. So those types of things are things that, we're adding in those responsibilities.
Those things weren't necessarily part of the responsibilities 10, 12 years ago?
No.
Yeah, okay. So it was time?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts? If not, we'll jump right into the factors.
Jump right in.
First factor is complexity, judgment, and decision-making. As always, we just, for the purposes of those that may be viewing the meeting here, we just take a couple minutes to explain how each of these factors work. Typically, they run on a 1 to 6 scale, 1 being fairly basic, rudimentary, standard, 6 being all the way up to policy-making role, and obviously everything else in between. So in this case, when talking about the complexity of the role and the judgment, decision-making involved, a 1 was a highly repetitive job, consists of basic, simple tasks. Decisions are rarely required. 2 is a routine role, a wide variety of tasks performed with standard procedures. Occasional exceptions might be encountered. Some may require decisions regarding setup and sequencing and priority of tasks. A 3 is a role that is somewhat complex, including assigned projects that require some analysis and planning. Exceptions may be analyzed and resolved by changes to standard procedures. A 4 is a very complex role, a complex role, may require modification of existing procedures or the development of new methods. Analysis and planning are integral parts of the position. A 5 would be a highly diversified and complex role involving planning, analysis, and coordination of major interrelated activities. Sometimes making decisions where established policies are inadequate, I'm sorry, and recommending changes to established policy. A 6 would be a role that requires policy formulation. Ann, in terms of you, where did you have this pegged?
Oh, I thought I wasn't gonna be speaking to that.
No, you're not voting on it.
Oh, where, okay,
Yeah.
so where did I have it?
Yeah, we always
I-
like to know where the hiring manager sees the role.
I see it as a complex role. I had it at a 3.
Somewhat complex.
It is somewhat complex. There are a lot of analysis. There's, I believe most folks know, but the assistant treasurer collector is also at the window accepting payments. That's the primary function as well. She's interfacing with the public. She's taking payments. She's making judgments on how to deal with situations.
Right.
She's putting in payroll. She's analyzing contracts. I had it as a complex role. I think I had it as a 3.
Great.
I scored it as a 3 as well. A lot of it too for, just having been down there, there's a lot of Q&A that takes place when you're standing there with that employee at the window between the public and the town, and that was a big part of it too, the kind of problem solving
Yeah.
that goes on with it. So that was another piece in addition to what Diane said that made me think it was a 3.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
Do you add any performance aspect to it in your absence, she has to step in?
I think that speaks to that.
Okay.
I think it does speak to that.
It is part of the job description. There's one line there about in the absence of the treasurer collector.
But does that augment the 3 in any way? That's a big criteria.
No, she doesn't have authority to make decisions in terms of,
So she's not an XO.
if she gets to the point where she needs to make something that steps outside of the standard norm or the policy, she
Okay.
has to.
And
So
I-
3 sums.
And I know we get to this with other factors, but I think fairly safe to assume that she's working under fairly tight supervision. He or she will work under tight supervision, and that it would be rare for this person to be modifying existing procedures and policies on his or her own. Okay, that's why I had it as a 3 as well.
Sounds right.
I have one quick question about the job description. Who does research and respond to credible length of service inquiries from employees? You've stricken that from the job
I do that.
description. Okay.
Because there's a lot of information that goes into determining that and interfacing with Essex Regional, and that I decided to take that out of there.
Okay, if you were to be gone for a week, would this assistant be able to do that?
Yeah, in my absence.
Okay.
With the new person, that would be something that, obviously, my plan would be to sort of, again, train an employee, train the assistant treasurer collector to be able to handle a multitude of things in my absence.
Yep.
That would be one of them as well. I just felt like initially, the assistant treasurer collector has never done that,
Okay.
just because they're complex.
Yep.
It may not be exact years of service, it might be part-time service. There's a lot of
Yeah.
judgment that goes into helping to determine what credible service is.
Right.
So that's why I took it out of there, but
Okay.
obviously my goal would be to do the same thing, to train the assistant treasurer collector to be able to step in time.
Right. And that's something I should have mentioned earlier. I apologize that, we always like to remind each other and the hiring managers that we try to stay away from what we call one-offs.
Uh-huh.
One-offs being that, once or twice a year, or, 3 times a year, someone might have a responsibility because of a vacation schedule, to take on a responsibility that typically would fall under, in this case, the manager. We try not to give those more consideration than we think that they deserve, given the fact that it may not happen at all.
Yep.
And then the other thing we always want to remind folks of is that there are those occasions where we may choose to split, a number. We may decide that it's, in a particular factor, it might be a 3.5 or a 5.5 as opposed to, a 5 or a 6. So we always have that option.
Thank you for that. So my question on that bullet kind of reflected some other duties within the job description that were similar, as far as responsibility for a job. And so that one was just an easy one that I was able to pull out and say, what about if you're gone for a week? So, okay, thank you for that reminder, Mark.
No problem. Other questions or thoughts? If not, seeing none, we'll vote. I'll start off this way and then we'll reverse it. I would agree that it's a 3.
3.
3.
3.
3.
3 it is. Thank you all. Next factor, education, which is usually one of the more straightforward ones. We've got a requirement. As always, we talk about preferences versus prerequisites. And Diana, if I'm not mistaken, you've got this as a prerequisite for an associate's degree. Minimum required qualifications, associate's degree. Pretty straightforward. And that would bring it in
4.
as a 4 2-year post-college, yeah?
Quick question.
Yep, sure.
The tax collector position, what is the required? Is it bachelor's?
It's a bachelor's.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have the job description in front of me. I think it's a bachelor's in finance, accounting, or there are a couple names, but I think I put in this one business-related field.
Right.
Because associates, I don't know, you get an associates in accounting. I don't.
Yeah, I think it depends on the school.
But 2 years of additional schooling is definitely needed. But BS is what the treasurer collector role is.
Okay, so this is an assistant position. Is the intent at some point to do succession planning for this position to take over or to apply to a tax collector position were to become available?
Yes.
Okay, what would happen to the educational requirement at that point? Maybe, ask for a bachelor's to be completed within a couple of years or something, or?
Well, I mean, that's a good point, but there's also mention in there that there is schooling that happens as both assistant and treasurer collector. You go to school for a certification in collector or certification in treasurer. It's a 6-year commitment to get both. So I could see someone, working in the role for, say, 3 years, having an associate's, becoming certified. I think, as with any job, I think, I can't recall how the treasurer job description is written, but it could say a preference. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at that.
Okay.
But the assistant treasurer collector does start the certification process. It's a 6-year process to get both.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think employees know, and I mean, having speaking for myself, if you know that you want a shot at the succession plan, you look at the job description and see what do I need to do on my own
Yeah.
to get it. So I think that, is feasible as well.
Someone may want the assistant treasurer collector role that doesn't want to necessarily move into that next phase.
Mhm.
I don't know if that would be the case, but then we would be looking to hire
Externally.
outside to, for the,
Mhm.
so there's
Yeah.
there's no predictor on how that could morph, but some people are quite happy, in a supportive role. I don't know.
Okay, it seems fairly straightforward as a 4, which is completion of a 2-year post-secondary or college degree.
4,
Why don't we go around this way? Patty?
4,
4.
4.
4 it is. Next factor is experience. Considers the time required to develop the necessary skills and expertise to perform the job duties and responsibilities, defined as the length of time required to acquire the minimum skills. Diane, you've got this rated as was it a minimum 3 years or
thought it was 3 to 5.
Yep.
3 to 5, you said, right? 3 to 5, that would put it into the
3.5?
4 category again, which is 4 to 6, and we've gone through this before.
I know.
You
So
know,
what
we've got
is-
1 to 3 where we could have 3 to 5 as opposed to 4 to 6.
I have it as 3.5 because of
Yeah.
that.
That's what I was thinking.
So what is it, 1 to,
Yeah,
1
we
to
really
3 or
should think
4
about
to
this.
6.
We don't need to do this today,
1
but
to
for
3 or
future
4.
reference, we may want to tighten this one up and change, we've got
well,
1 to
I,
3 and then change, we should probably change the 4 to 6 to 3 to 5 so that there's continuity there. Otherwise, if somebody's got 3.5 years' experience, is it fish or fowl, right?
Mhm.
So, just a thought. So, anyways, so you're talking 3 to 5, which would put it, somebody's thought maybe a 3.5?
That's what I
Yes.
thought, yeah.
Okay, other thoughts?
I'd agree with that.
I would agree.
All right, so we're voting on a 3.5?
3.5 for me.
Yes.
Tony?
3.5.
3.5 it is. Independent action is the next factor. Refers to the initiative required to perform the duties and responsibilities of the job effectively. It also considers the creativity and original thought required for the job, and the amount of direction and control received from the supervisor, which we talked about a little bit already, or by standard practices and precedents. A 1 would be an individual who works under close supervision, receives detailed instructions and procedures either verbally or in writing, no latitude to make changes in the work, and refers all but the most routine questions or problems to the supervisor. A 2 works under less frequent supervision. Work is defined by standard practices and established procedures. This individual can prioritize tasks and decide if additional information is required. Occasionally will make decisions on the setup of the work, but still refer all significant problems and concerns to the supervisor. A 3 works under occasional supervision, proceeds on his or her own when the majority of the duties are defined by general instructions and established methods. This person may use initiative and/or ingenuity to identify potential problems and conduct research to determine a viable solution. A 4 is an individual who works with general guidance, carries out the plans and activities to attain definitive objectives, applies policies and standards widely accepted within the occupation. Assignments may involve creative work. A 5 is somebody who works independently or on general assignments and carries out broad assignments of a major department. Did you have this?
I had this between a 4 and a 5, so 4.5.
Because?
She generally works, I'm not micromanaging her daily tasks. She's performing certain functions, she's making decisions on her priorities in terms of what, this week happens to be a payroll week, so I'm gonna work on that, I'm going to do that. She works pretty independently, again, unless she comes across something that needs to be addressed or she wants, guidance on if if it's something that's pressing, but she pretty much works independently. I didn't think it arose to a 5, and there was a reason.
Yeah, I'm looking at the last bullet in 5, takes action without reference to superiors
Yeah.
except when policy changes are required, major investments are involved, and long-term programs are affected.
Yeah.
So
So I had it at a 4.5.
Yeah, the plus comes in with plans and carries out broad assignments. So 4.5 sounds terrific, sounds on the money.
I agree.
Other thoughts, questions? Let's vote, chief?
4.5 for me.
4.5 for me.
4.5.
4.5.
4.5 it is. Thank you all. Next factor is consequence of errors. This factor assesses the likelihood and the probable effect of errors on the job, and it considers who is affected. Is it a unit within the department? Is it the entire department? Is it the town, or could it even be the public? It also considers the extent of losses to the town which could result from inappropriate decisions or judgments. It refers to normal rather than extreme errors. However, there could be the possibility of serious consequences. Also considers how easily the error is to identify and to correct. 1, errors are readily detected, costs or impact are minimal, errors are easily corrected once they're detected, and may cause loss of credibility to the individual. 2, errors are probably detected by others within the work area, may result in brief delays in services or completion of tasks. There could be slight loss of credibility to the unit or the department. The cost could be somewhat noticeable as materials are replaced. 3 is errors that affect the work of others but not generally damaging to the town. Errors are detected and corrected before they become serious, may cause loss of a significant amount of time. Correcting errors could delay related operations, such as the validity of records and data. Errors may have an adverse impact on the public and/or employee relations. 4, errors cause substantial identifiable losses. Beyond damage and waste as a result of inadequate planning, may also cause substantial delays in services and programs, identifiable deterioration in public and employee relations. I think we have to worry about physical injuries here. 5, errors may cause serious short-term breakdowns, may cause serious delays in services with uncoordinated efforts or shortage of vital parts or components, may cause commitment or withholding of funds, inadequate analysis, or poor planning prior to making decisions. 6, errors may cause long-term negative consequences to the town. Diane, help us understand how independent this person might be as it relates to the possibilities of errors being undetected or being detected too late, or and what might be the damage to the department, the entire organization, the town, residents.
I had this at a 3.5. I mean, there are things when you're handling payroll, paying folks, keeping track of sick and vacation schedules, applying tax payments. You apply tax payment incorrectly, it affects not only the taxpayer themselves, but somebody else. So there are errors that can happen that eventually will come to light, but it would destroy, the relationship with the public or employees. Most errors, I think, would be caught before they got to catastrophic level. The taxpayer's gonna call and say, I had a tax payment made, they got posted incorrectly or what have you. And somebody might say, I didn't get the hours that I was supposed to get paid for. We would compensate them, we'd fix it. But it's a fairly responsible job, and there are areas that can be, and there have been things that have happened that we eventually catch them and we can fix them.
Right.
But in the process, we want to make sure that, especially when we're dealing with the funds of the town, that we demonstrate capability and integrity and so forth. So I think in this particular role, that's why I had it at least a 3.5.
You had a 3.5. I had it rated as a 4 myself. That third bullet item, to me, is the key. Identifiable deterioration in public and employee relations. Not so much employee relations, but I'm thinking about the public here. I'm thinking about the sensitivity with which the general public, has concerns about timeliness of tax information, the accuracy of tax information, the frustrations and challenges and everything that goes with, anything that may be followed up there. So this one I had as a 4.
I can support a 3.5 because there's oversight for this position.
Yeah, the oversight would bring the deterioration to a minimum, I think. And I gave the plus the 3.5 just based on the fact that she's responsible for confidential files and all that possesses for a problem. I mean, that's a number of employees and that's a big responsibility. Probity and competence involved. So 3.5 sounds right.
Tony, thoughts?
3.5.
Any other discussion? Let's vote. John, why don't you kick us off?
3.5. Yep.
Tony?
3.5.
3.5.
3.5.
All right, I'll defer to the group. 3.5. Contacts. Contacts refer to the relative importance to the organization of the working relationships required. The contacts can be internal or external to the organization. The contacts may take a variety of forms: face-to-face conversation, phone conversation, public appearances, media. This factor also assesses who these contacts are, what the purpose of the contacts is, and the importance to the town. Could include but not limited to residents, elected officials, members of town boards, appointees, co-workers, etc. A 1, the contacts would be very routine within the immediate area, basic information. No significant contacts beyond the immediate group or the immediate associates. A 2 would be routine contacts with occasional discussions outside the immediate area. Delivering or receiving goods, routine information from different sources, may have occasional contact with the public, town officials, board members. A 3 would be frequent and important beyond the immediate associates, requires appropriate tact to discuss problems, act as a resource person, make recommendations or clarify policies. This person may have limited responsibility for securing cooperation, among others. This person would have regular contact with the public, town officials, board members. There may be some responsibility to persuade, convince, and secure cooperation and acceptance. A 4 would be frequent and important for the purposes of clarifying town procedures and resolving issues. Requires the use of interpersonal skill to clarify the contact's issues and to communicate information clearly. It requires in-depth professional knowledge of the subject being discussed. A 5, frequent and important, often around a topic of deep personal concern for an individual stakeholder. That stakeholder could be another employee, could be a member of the public. As an example, tax abatement, compliance with state and federal regulations, etc. Requires advanced communication skills, tact, persuasion, and presentation skills.
I had it at 5.
You had the 5. Tell us about that.
They are handling, the assistant tax collector is handling, is the front face of the office. People are coming in if they've got an issue or they've received a late bill. There's a lot of tact that goes into those conversations. You have to be knowledgeable in what you're talking about, and you have to be able to handle the public. That role deals with other departments bringing funds for deposit. So that person is dealing with not only the public, department heads, employees asking questions, dropping off payroll. There's a lot they're dealing with. Again, it's the front face of the office, so they are the contact person.
Is it fair to say that during those conversations, it would be rare for you to get involved as well? It's typically them one-on-one with the public?
If I can hear, I am within earshot of the office, and if I hear things are sort of escalating, I would go out and
Okay.
help. Sometimes she would come in, or the assistant tax collector would come in and ask for advice.
Right.
If the person, wanted to speak to the manager or speak to the
Right.
department head.
But typically, would you say they're generally on their own?
Typically, they should be able to handle any sort of discrepancy, issue, missing payment. It's the front face of the office, and they should be able to handle most of the contacts. But there have been instances where I've needed to step in because the person is agitated and really needs to speak to a department head. There are certain things that the assistant tax collector, the assistant treasurer collector does not have the qualifications to do. For example, abate any sort of adjusted interest or adjust a late fee if that's being requested. She does not, that role does not have the ability to
Okay.
do that. I'm the only one that can do that. So occasionally,
Okay,
but they should be able to handle most contacts.
okay.
And I think of it too, from a department head's point of view and mine, like, I think of all the different line items, right, that I do deposits into and things that I go to this position for to make those deposits, and the need for that accuracy, making sure that the money is going into the right account to reimburse me for the, the payroll out or whatever it is, from my lens in, that's this position overseen by you, but that, I'm going to that position
Right.
with the deposits, hoping that the accounting and whatnot, you know what I mean, of those various things are all, are all accurate. And then I defer back to the tracking of the paid time off for the entire town. If there's a mistake, and we've seen it before, and like you said, there's nothing that can't be fixed, but it is time consuming to fix some of those things and can potentially have a negative impact on staff. So I think that the ability to be able to do this and have those contacts with people is really important. So that was one of the reasons I had it as a 5 as well, because of that internal and external piece of how you navigate
Right.
those situations with people.
I support the 5.
Okay.
I do as well, a wide variety of people she deals with.
Yeah,
That's a big universe.
it is.
Town employees, her contemporaries, and the angry public coming to the window.
And if you think about the beginning of the conversation where we talked about this role taking more and more responsibility on other matters of vital importance to employees, be it benefits administration,
Yeah.
payroll record keeping, wellness programs, all of which are, front and center when it comes to, people's well-being and their state of mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, their money.
Yeah, their money.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're dealing with someone's money or their time off, that can be
Bingo.
touchy.
Yeah.
Customer service is hard work.
If there's no further discussion, let's vote on it. I'll kick this one off with a 5.
Yep. 5.
5.
5.
5 it is. Supervision. As always, as a reminder, we break supervision into 2 categories. One being the character of the supervision, meaning, who are the responsibilities, who are involved in these responsibilities, what are they, the importance of the supervision that may be involved. And the second is a straight line scope, how many employees are supervised. In this particular case, Diane, you've already identified that this person will not be supervising anyone.
Nope.
And so, given that, it would, I
That's a
believe,
0.
come in
It's
as
a
a 0 in both factors. Is that right? Yeah, the 0 in both.
Yep.
Yes.
No argument there?
Nope.
Let's vote on it, just to make it official. We're voting on both character and scope of supervision here. We'll combine the 2 factors into one. Chief?
I'll kick it off with a 0.
0.
I can't even bring myself to say that. 0.
2 ought.
2 zeros it is. Thank you all. Physical demands. This factor considers the degree, the frequency, the severity, and the intensity of any physical activity or intense visual concentration. We always underline the intense visual, meaning the amount of time someone might spend during the course of a day in front of a monitor, in front of a screen. The stress involved in that volume of work is not a factor here, but physical demands are. This is strictly physical demands. The town expects the employee to be sufficiently healthy to perform the duties of the position, and weariness caused by long periods of repetitive tasks are considered. The visual attention required refers to the eye strain involved in somebody staring at the screen all day, the percentage of time spent at a computer terminal inputting and/or extracting data and information. 1, there is no undue fatigue. There's generally involved, variety of sitting and standing and walking, but visual concentration, meaning less than 20% of this person's time is spent in front of a monitor. 2, there is some fatigue as a result of spending perhaps 20 to 50% of this individual's time in front of a monitor, as well as some infrequent bursts of physical activity, heavy lifting, climbing ladders, shoveling snow, etc. 3, moderate fatigue, frequently moving about, including some heavy physical effort on a more regular basis, or visual concentration greater than 50% of the time. It may require extended periods of time sitting or standing. 4 is frequent fatigue requiring a considerable amount of physical effort, or as a result of considerable moving, standing, or heavy physical effort like pulling awkward objects. Or it should be, for some reason we may have lost the, I thought we had another factor which included like 75 to 100% of the time in front of the monitor. I may be wrong on that. Well, let's stop. I don't think we need to get to a 5 here, so. Any thoughts?
I have it as a 3.
Moderate fatigue.
I thought that as well.
Okay. Typically more than 50% of this person's time is either spent at the window or, okay, it's either standing at the window or in front of the monitor.
Yes.
It's interesting, the physical demands don't distinguish between the leverage of physical demands versus the stress that goes with working with the public. You would think stress would be involved somewhere in the physical demands, in that mental anxiety is a physical demand. But it's nowhere in here. So I would go with the 3 as well.
I always write this one down because in my mind, the physical demands and physical fatigue are almost two separate categories.
Yeah.
And I work in a physical, environment. So when I think of, the screen time versus the lifting heavy objects, carrying things on a regular basis, climbing ladders,
Right.
dealing with snow, I guess I sometimes have a hard time comparing those apples to
One of the things I think
oranges.
we often forget in talking about this factor is that if you look at the second paragraph under the factor, it says, stress and volume of work are considered in the complexity factor, which we've already gone through,
Yeah,
and not to be rated under this factor. So it's
yeah.
kind of a close call there, but they're all good points. So,
Separate categories.
so I'm sorry, Chief, did you recommend?
I had it at a 2, but I can understand why people are going. I think my lens looks at this one always differently every time.
Other thoughts?
Well, just take,
I mean, just in terms of greater than 50% of the time in front of the monitor.
Yeah.
Would suggest a 3.
a 3, yeah.
I think a 3.
Any further discussion? Tony, why don't you lead us off officially here?
3.
Lynn?
3.
Chief?
I can support a 3.
3.
3 days. Working conditions. Refers to what, if any, disagreeable aspects of the job environment may be involved as it relates to employee safety and comfort. The degree of severity, of the workplace hazard is considered. 1 is generally agreeable, standard office environment, very few, if any, disadvantages. 2 is generally agreeable. There may be some disadvantages. the office could be noisy, or the environment, I'm sorry, could be noisier or dirtier, or bothersome odors may be present, maybe potential for accidents or illnesses due to minor injuries, bruises, abrasions, so forth and so on. A 3, mostly agreeable. Some minor disadvantages are usually present in terms of exposures to heat, cold, humidity, dirt, oil. I don't think we need to get beyond a 3 here, do we? No.
I had-
Diane, your thoughts?
I had it as a 1.
A 1?
Yeah.
Yeah,
A pure one.
Yep,
Agree.
I agree with the 1.
Lynn, you want to kick us off officially?
1.
Chief?
1.
1?
one,
One it is. Okay, that's the end of our factors, and then at the end, we always determine if we need to consider anything that's kind of extraordinary. The volume of the work, we've already talked about the volume, the confidentiality involved, we've already discussed that as part of the other factors. Accuracy, we talked about importance already. The only other thing we think about is, as we're recruiting for a position like this, what might the marketplace look like? And typically, that relates to whether we classify it as a 1, or a 2, or a 3. You know, we have 16 1s, 16 2s, 16 3s, and it's typically at this stage that we determine if there's anything that's truly extraordinary or something that would require it to come in at a 2 or a 3 as opposed to a 1. So let's talk about the marketplace.
Well, first of all, it came in at a 16, and it came in dead center of the range for a 16, so it's not like one factor would have made a difference one way or the other. So
So
it's a
it's good to hear,
solid,
yeah,
it's a
good.
solid 16. Comparable positions in a 16 are assistant town planner, library assistant director, deputy harbor master, the executive administrator position as it was previously out at the desk. So I can see that that fits within
Good comp.
the structure. So I would agree with the 16. I think a 1, 2, or a 3, a 1 obviously there's a multitude of people that could fill the role. There's a 2 that's, it's a little specialized. A 3 is there's some highly needed qualifications where there would be fewer of them.
Right.
Assistant finance director, town accountant requires some very specific training. Conservation
Yeah.
requires some very specific training. I would-
Specialized education above and beyond
Yeah.
associates.
I
like
see
that.
it as a 16.2. I think it definitely is not a 1 where it's, you could have,
Standard labor for.
yeah. I think it definitely is gonna require someone that's either been serving as a clerk, serving as an assistant somewhere else, that's looking to make a jump to maybe, take on that treasurer collector role down the road. So I see it as a 16.2.
Thoughts?
I agree with that.
Agreeable.
that makes sense.
Yep. Any commentary, questions? John, why don't you kick us off?
I agree, 6.2.
A 2, 16.2?
16.2.
16.2.
16.2.
16.2 it is.
Great.
Great.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Anything else to be discussed?
Just a comment on this process. Every time we go through this exercise, I just really think that it's a valuable exercise and, it's a thought-provoking. I'm glad that we discuss it as a group and then vote on different numbers as a group so that we're all in agreement. But it really, instead of just saying, okay, it fits into this grade, and just having a couple of employees think that, administrator or whatever. I just really enjoy this exercise and I think it's a good, good practice.
Here, here.
So proud.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And in every one of these classifications, we come across a factor where we might struggle a little bit. We need to be a little bit creative or sort of extrapolate out what the intention of the writing of the factor, what do the framers mean when they created this Constitution? That kind of stuff.
Okay.
So that's as political as I get. So yeah, I would agree, Lynn. I think it's a very valuable, and I think the hiring managers learn from it. And I think every time we do it, we get better at it.
Yeah.
And we don't often. I think we were pretty much in agreement throughout the process. That we don't always end up in agreement. There's always some back and forth, but I think this is a real good one, so.
I appreciate that you said that about the hiring managers. So for the hiring managers to have to defend their edits within a job description, I think that that's valuable for them, and for them to speak to us about why they have edits and where the edits coming from. What do you see the job
Right.
being, in practice? So I think it's a good
Right.
exercise all
Right.
around.
Great, agreed. Thank you all, and with that, we are adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
Out the door.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.